Welcome to Dynamo using Python to move a column and also how to debug. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up Dynamo, get the Python node, select a few elements using the select node, and get the X, Y, and Z coordinate of a point here. Go ahead and select a couple columns, delete the code, and I'm using Visual Studio's to write my code for the IntelliSense. So the first thing I want to do is import the Revit service, which is the document, and it'll be the document which I'm using here. So I'll go ahead and import the Revit service. And from Revit service, I want to get the persistent, or the one that I'm actually using, and import the document manager. And then I'll go ahead and just copy and paste that. This time I want the transaction. That way I can make changes in Revit with a transaction manager using the document. The next thing I want to do here is get the Revit node, which allows me to unwrap nodes or unwrap Revit elements. So I'll go ahead and import the Revit element. And also I will use it to switch the feet and inches that Revit uses to metric, which Dynamo uses, which are meters. And the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to import the Revit API. And I'll just go ahead and get the Autodesk Revit database, and I'll just go ahead and import. The star means everything, so I'll just import everything. That way I don't have to pick and choose what I want. Here I'll just grab the document from the document manager, and it's from the persistent one that I'm using, so I'll use the instance of the current database document which I want and send it into the doc. And here I'll use the system because I want to get a collection or use a list, and I'll just go ahead and import everything. So here's the first in that I'm going to get from the user or myself, which will be the elements that I selected. So I'll just go ahead and get the in, and 0 will be the first item in my list that I'll grab. The next will be the new location, which will be the point which I've adjusted. So it's the point origin, and then you tell it that it's offset 10 feet, so it's more of an offset. You can apply some additional parameters to make it so that it's that plus the addition of your point, but this is just a kind of an offset, so it's 10 in the X where you're originally from. So the next thing is from the collection of my systems. Here's the list element ID, which was referenced ahead of time, and it's just an empty list right now. But what I'll do is the elements that I've sent in, for each one of the elements which I'm calling E in my elements list, I'll go ahead and send the ID. And I'm transferring the ID because it's what I'm going to actually need to make the transformation. And here I'm going to use the transaction manager from my Revit services to make an instance. And this is kind of it's a handshake with Revit to tell it that you're going into a transaction. That way it knows that you're going to update something. So I'll go ahead and get the instance, ensure in transaction, and I'll send in the current document which I'm using right now from the element transform unit, which is a collection of transformations that allows us to move, rotate, and do some other things with it. I'll go ahead and move the element, which needs the document, element ID, and the new location. So it's the location from the point, your origin point, to the new point. So if I go 0, 10, 0, which is X, Y, and Z, it'll go 10 away from its origin spot in the Y direction. So, and then the very last thing here I'm going to do is I'm going to close up the transaction of using the transaction manager instance, and I'll use the transaction task done, and that'll tell Revit, then I'm done. And I'll just go ahead and send my IDs out. That way, if I want to do some additional work with them, I will be able to do that with Revit. So I've copied and pasted this in here. I'll wire up my nodes, and I've deliberately not edited this video to be clean because I want to debug and show the basics of debugging. So here the interesting part is if you debug, it'll tell you what line is incorrect here, and you can kind of go in, find line 5 here, and I got Revit service transaction, which should be transactions. I hit accept, run again. Look at the yellow thing. It'll tell me kind of the number of the line which is failing, and then I can kind of go in here, look it up. Obviously misspelled Revit. This happens all the time, which is the reason I left it here. You have to kind of work through the code, find the line that you found the error, look up kind of closely what you did, and then finally it'll run. So here we go. I'll go ahead and change the values here of the point which I'm adding to it. It'll move my columns. Go ahead and add some X values and some Y values here. Change it. And that's about as easy as it gets. So you'll probably make some much better nodes than this, but this is just kind of a basic rundown of how to get started with the move node. So anyways, I'm going to copy and paste this back into Visual Studios. I'm putting this on the GitHub, which I have, and I'll go ahead and publish where to get the GitHub. I'll go ahead and save that and publish it on my GitHub. That way you can copy, paste it, put your wonderful code and add to it and make some really awesome things. Anyways, for more API videos, please subscribe. Thank you.